personality shaped by being an athlete and a background in mainstream sports media, I found that the stories I was most interested in telling were the ones often overlooked, the ones that might not otherwise be told, the ones that show the intangible and not just the highlight reel. The Sports Council is about highlighting the great, the good, the unique, and everything in between in the Pacific Northwest sports world. I'm Jamie Council. Thanks for joining me.
You're listening to the Sports Council on 1340 ESPN, the Tri-Cities leader in sports. The Pacific Northwest loves their basketball, and it shows by the talent it puts into the NBA. Out of the state of Washington, Paolo Banchero, Marjon Beauchamp, Zach LaVine, Gary Payton, John Stockton, Isaiah Thomas, Joe Harris, Jamal Crawford, and the list goes on.
My name is Nalin Sood, and I am the head basketball coach at Mountlake Terrace High School. I'm a teacher at Mountlake Terrace High School. I'm a former student at Mountlake Terrace High School. So I think now, while I've been here at Mountlake Terrace, I think it's around my 41st year consecutively. I've been the head basketball coach here for 20 years. I'm also the executive director of the Washington Interscholastic Basketball Coaches Association, and I'm on the executive board of the National High School Basketball Coaches Association. I'm the past president of that. So, I do have a balance of my day of teaching, and I enjoy being in the classroom and teaching business education, business technology. But then as I just got back, I enjoy going to that gym for whatever hours it is, whatever time of the year it is, and being a part of basketball. I probably started prematurely graying because of that kind of talent and having to coach against some of those guys. But as I'm looking at these 56 teams, and I'm seeing the names on these rosters, it's really cool because I just know I've been doing this so long. I get to, in my own way and from a distance, or whether it's a Mountlake Terrace kid or a kid in our league or someone in Seattle, I get to continue to follow them. And, I know, we'll use O'Day, for example. And we could use, Ferris, for example, some of their kids, and I could go on, but, obviously they're proud of what those kids have gone on and done at the college and the NBA level, but that speaks for Washington also. And that's a really cool thing to see. It's not fun coaching against it in a game when you're going against those guys, but when you get to see those kids and how they go succeed at the next level. I know, like with Ferris, Sean Mallon, I remember when he played for Wayne Gilman at Ferris, and I got to watch him and see him in high school and see him at the state tournament. And then you got to go see his success at Gonzaga, or you get to see Paulo, and he missed his senior year, but what he did at Duke and now what he does for Orlando, and seeing guys like that. And the next batch of guys are on deck, and the next batch of guys are right here in the Pacific Northwest. I think you don't have to go too far. Every time I seem to go online and read something and you talk about Washington basketball, the growth of it, and the achievements of not only Washington individuals, but also teams, what they've done, just not within the state of Washington to earn respect, but gone on the national scale. I mean, I'll use this this year, as recent as this year. You look at what Tim Kelly and Curtis High School did, making it to that national tournament. They lost the first game by 1 point, but they represented Washington really well. And I started with AAU back in the early 2000s when I was with a program called Friends of Hoop, and now we have a lot more teams, a lot more AAU teams, and it's a much more saturated market. But what our AAU programs have done here, whether it's Friends of Hoop, you can read, there's a great article on Rotary, especially one of their pupils, Paulo Banchero, what he's done at Duke and now at the NBA level. The respect for Washington basketball is continuing to grow and grow and grow. And it's just not something that you just get handed to you. This is something you go out there and earn. And in the mid 2000s, you really saw the growth of it with some of our top kids going to national programs and really excelling and then getting opportunities in the NBA. So it's just been fantastic to see the growth of Washington basketball. And it's also been really great. I talk about, the AAU programs, but, I'm a high school coach, and I believe in high school coaching. And I believe, as you and I talked about before we went on the air here, about what's afforded to the student athlete through high school athletics, dealing with adversity, having the right mentors, working with kids, dealing with success, being more than just the basketball player and the athlete, being the student athlete, and holding the young person accountable academically. I just think there's so many things that student athletes get from the scholastic side of basketball. And I was talking to a friend of mine that's a financial advisor. He goes right down the list and he looks for those young people that are coming out of college with degrees, whatever it may be, but then also have some kind of sports background. And, you think about co-curricular, you think about, whether it's drama, whether it's band, whether it's a journalism program or broadcasting, whatever it may be, the commitment that those kids are putting in well after the school day ends, showing that exactly right there, that they're willing to be dedicated and give up their time for something that maybe you don't get a whole lot of pats on the back or a whole lot of accolades about, but it's something you're passionate about. And that's truly what the high school student athlete and basketball player also is, because basketball kids put in as much time as anybody. It doesn't make them better than anybody, but the time commitment for basketball, I see what our basketball kids do at Mountain Lake Terrace High School, my colleagues, what their kids do. It's unbelievable. And that's why I have so much respect for these kids and what they can do and what they give up to be a part of basketball programs.
The truth is, though, most players don't make it into the NBA. Don't tell some parents that. But these athletes do grow up cherishing the memories made from basketball events the movers and shakers in Washington provide. They grow up to appreciate the game of basketball and are a fan for life, and honestly better people because of it. So we're here not to talk about individual paths to greatness of basketball players in the Evergreen State. We're here to talk about the people that sacrifice their time and devote a lot of their purpose on this earth to basketball. They create opportunities for those that are called to greatness on the hardwood and mold memories for others that will have basketball always be a part of who they are. Ladies and gentlemen, I present WIBCA. Ever heard of them? No? Well, that's not surprising. It stands for the Washington Interscholastic Basketball Coaches Association. It's a nonprofit that's been around since the 1970s and exists to improve the sport of basketball in Washington State.
We're an organization that started around 1978, and I know I'm getting older and people think I was there when it started. I was not. I was in elementary school at the time, but it was an organization that was started back then it's a nonprofit organization that really brought coaches together. And we brought coaches together to see what we could do to promote the game of basketball in Washington and have a voice at the high school coaches level. From that, and I'm going to get ahead of myself a little bit, we've become a part of the National High School Basketball Coaches Association, which does that on a national scale. So not only to have a voice, but also to provide opportunities for all the stakeholders. Number one, the student athlete. Number two, high school coaches. And number three, parents. And to do that within a scholastic environment, to do that with people that are accountable for everything we do with kids. We don't do this so our pockets can get fat. We don't do this so WIBCA can be, seven-figure numbers in the bank by any means and that financially solvent. We do this as a nonprofit just to provide experiences for the student athlete. And so WIBCA started in 78, and they started doing that with the Hall of Fame. And then we've continued to grow Hall of Fame. Then you have All-State. Then you have a Hall of Fame, you have All-State games, and then you start doing clinics for professional development. And so, that was the basis of it. But then also now we've continued to grow more and more that we're not only just doing All-State, we're doing a futures game. We're doing a unified sports game. We have multiple clinics going on. We have regular board meetings. We have a pretty extensive and diversified executive board that meets regularly. We have a lot of contacts and relationships with sponsors so that we can have funds come in to continue to provide these experiences for student athletes. And then we've done started about, I want to say 18 years ago with a showcase event that we do in May that gives maybe not the elite kid the opportunity to showcase their skills and to get their name out there, but maybe the mid-level kid, the one that's going to go to a community college or D2 or D3. So we do that for 160 kids in May, and now we've started to I don't want to even say dip our toes. We've jumped in pretty knee deep, neck deep, it feels like, with the June Scholastic events, and we've started off right away doing that as a regional event for teams throughout the West Coast. It was individuals. This is the first year we're doing the team event. So we provide a lot of experiences, and I think because of what we've done, and I'm very proud of what we've done in the state of Washington with the events. One of the biggest challenges I have as executive director is getting everything we do to fit on one page. And I'm making the font smaller and smaller and smaller because the list is getting longer and longer and longer. And here's why I'm so proud about it. As I hear the challenges and the trials and turbulences that other state associations are facing with putting on events, I'll use the All-State Games, for example. Other states are having a hard time getting kids to want to participate in it. And we're not facing that problem at all. In fact, we have kids that probably deserve to be in it. We have our criteria that aren't in it, but it's thriving more than ever. We had 60 kids participate this year, and I think we only had to reach out to 62. There was 2 kids that couldn't make it, and I want to say it was because they had baseball games that weekend. So what WIBCA is doing is fantastic. And a big part of what we're doing is our membership. We have a strong membership, but also I'm really proud of the board that I get to work with and I get to work for as executive director, because we have several retired coaches that they're the who's who in the state of Washington. They're very well respected. They've got legacies that I could go on and on about, but instead of retiring and check out, they have found some time that they could even give back more, and they've checked in even more and more. And so our executive board, which is 12 members, works tirelessly without looking for a handout or looking for anything in return. Yeah, we give them some free gear every once in a while with WIBCA on it, but it's good for advertising. But the creativity, the hard work, the dedication, all for really the student athlete is second to none. And so I have an easy time sharing what WIBCA does at a national level. And obviously I'm a little bit biased here, Jamie, but I would say this: I will put WIBCA as an association up against any other association in the United States. Now, you've got some Michigans with 3,000 members, and Texas with 5,000 members, and Florida, and this and that. But still, for the size of our state, the amount of coaches we have, and what we're doing, it's pretty remarkable. And it's because we've got everybody. We disagree respectfully as for what's best for kids, but at the end of the day, everybody on our board is rowing in the same direction. This WIBCA is a very important part of my life. I look forward to it every day, but I look forward to even when I'm retired, because it gives me a chance to give back to this game that's given me so much. And that's, I think I'm speaking for all our board members. The goals of WIBCA, like I said, are just continue to grow and identify what can we do to provide the right experience for all the stakeholders. And that's why we took on this event to do this. And the challenges, I think I just touched on it. The challenges are just get better. And if we're not doing something very well, what can we do to improve on it? And we're always doing that. Never do we say we have the answers on things, but we're a tremendous voice within the state of Washington for advocating for the student athlete. And I think we're, with the National Association, we're doing that at the national level also. I'm just a cog here that's just very proud of what WIBCA has grown into now and what we've become. And my colleagues that I work with and all the coaches across the state, hopefully they feel good about this association representing them, because that's all we are. We are here for the coaches. We consistently throughout the year provide these experiences, not only for the student athletes, but also the coaches, and creating that bridge between them, that we, with our professional development, with our clinics and the camaraderie and the education you get from that to better yourself as a coach. As soon as you say, I'm done being better, it's time to get out. But then these playing experiences where not only are the kids getting better, they're getting exposure in front of college coaches to better themselves. And then I think from those right there, for the student athlete to get that kind of opportunity, maybe they want to come back. I always say this, that I was a four-year basketball player here at Mount Lake Terrace High School, 2 years on varsity. No one's ever going to see my jersey hanging from the rafters. Nobody. They might use it to clean the rafters, but it was such a positive experience for me. And, WIBCA was doing some things then, but I think it was for the elite. Now we're doing it on a broader scale. And we're doing it on a broader scale, not only for the kids, but also for the coaches. And with so many events, we can make it so inclusive that, you've got to work really hard not to know what WIBCA is doing and not to know the opportunities that are out there. And I was a guy that started with WIBCA around 2003. Basically, I was the one that was filling up the Gatorade cups at the meeting. And I was sitting at the back of the room and keeping my mouth shut. And I just sat there and stared at the dais of the guys up there and thought, I just want to keep getting involved. And I've continued to grow and continue to take advantage of opportunities, whatever they needed me to do. And so I'm an example of that. And it's not only made me, got me these opportunities that I never guessed in life, being the executive director and working nationally. It's forged some relationships that's why we're in the business we are. It's the relationships with the other coaches. It's the relationship with your co-coaches. It's a relationship with your kids and their families.
They hold a D1 recruiting event in June for the Scholastic teams, while most, including myself, believe it's the club programs that hold a monopoly on the recruiting of talent. That's not fully the case when it comes to the full picture of an athlete to most college recruiters.
56 teams from 6 states. We've got great community college programs coming, programs that are annually competing for NWAC championships. We've got D2 programs that play at the national level on a regular basis. And then we've got the who's who of Division I programs from the West Coast, all the way from Colorado to Utah to California to Oregon to Washington. The top Division I programs are going to be coming to this. The fact that we're bringing in really good teams, and not just teams, really good programs run by successful high school coaches from Colorado, from Arizona, from Utah, from Idaho, from Oregon, from bringing everybody in like that for this event. I just, was up at a practice with our kids. We're going to participate in it. And I just told them, this is different. This is different than what anywhere else you'll see. Yeah, you guys play AAU. You don't play AAU with your team. And college coaches really want to see kids playing with their high school team. Someone would say, well, they get, 12 weeks to do that from November to March. They're already doing that. Last time I checked, college coaches are pretty busy from November to March. It's hard for them to really get a pulse. And I talked to a college coach one time, I'm not going to say who it was. He said he wishes that the high school season was in the summer, because then he'd have more time to come out and watch those kids, where you get to see kids where they're playing with their high school teammates, where there's sets being run for them, where they're being held accountable on defense, where, we get to see how they interact with the coach on a negative play or their teammates. Not saying they don't do that during the non-scholastic season, but they get to see that even more. And they get to see that maybe also where they're getting to play with, maybe not everybody's at a real high level. They have to play with some other guys that aren't as good as them, and how do they make their teammates better? So we've heard that this is what they want to see. They did enjoy seeing the individual showcase, because it was, last year was 128 of some of the top kids on the West Coast. So you're only going against good players, but those coaches didn't have practice time with their kids. They didn't have time to put a system in. And a lot of these kids are system-based kids, and you're gonna get to see them operate in that type of environment.
So why specifically would a D1 coach want to watch a kid in his high school team rather than AAU?
Yeah. Well, we were just in the gym and we did some drills. And we did some drills that tie into what we do offensively. And I'm not around all the non-scholastic programs and practices or anything like that. But are they afforded that same opportunity of day after day doing these reps to get kids better, when then they play in a system that you're going to get a shot here at this time, or working with your kids on a certain skill set that when you catch the ball, you're going to do something like this. And then also executing certain things that you have in as a system to take advantage of your kids' skills and who they are, and to make you a better team. Nobody asked. I know the elite teams can keep track of their records, but that's not as much of a factor. But as coaches, we want to be successful, and as coaches, we have an idea with our kids, with their skills, with our personnel, what we need to do to be successful with those teams. And we're going to go out there and play to what our strengths are. We're going to go try to execute to what our strengths are, and we're going to try to overcome what our weaknesses are. I'm not sure you can always say that with the non-scholastic programs. And so I really believe that's a part of why college coaches, you might have to ask them why they want to see this. But I know, talking to some of them, they want to see the dynamic of the high school kid with their high school program. And some of the reasons I mentioned earlier, how do they respond to when the coach gets on them? How do they respond to when their teammate makes a negative play? How do they respond to when their teammate sets them up on a great play? And then how do they respond towards the structure that high school basketball provides? And it's just not the great teams that provide the structure. You can look at a team with an average record, and they just might not have the talent, but boy, they run their stuff well. Boy, they execute well. Boy, they're really well coached, and those kids play well within that system. I think coaches want to see that, because sometimes you don't get to see that with non-scholastic. You just don't. And not knocking them, they just don't have the time. We have 6 days a week for 3.5 months a year to go work on things to get better. And that's 6 days a week we have that practice time. And we don't have to pay for the gym to do that. And non-scholastic doesn't have that. And so I just think the quality of the product, I'm not going to say talent to talent, but the quality of the product from a team standpoint, in my opinion, is better. And on a talent standpoint, you take the top AAU team, they're probably going to be better than the top high school basketball team. But in terms of a whole team system, you're going to see a lot better product, I think, with what we do. I need to see this kid and see him in this situation playing for his team, because I can't the other weekends in the month of June. And then I'm going to go right back in July and see him playing with his AAU team, where he never got the basketball because the guard shot every time coming down the court. And my guy's a 6'10" guy. I want to see him with the basketball. Maybe I'll get to see him do that now. Or I can look at the schedule and I know there's two kids, one kid on this team, one kid on that team, or whoever many it is going at it in a game like that. I want to see how those guys fit each other. Yeah, I got to see it on TV last year in a state championship. Now I get to go see it live. And I get that young man to know that I'm there interested in watching that. So I think this is a tremendous opportunity, and talking to some of the college coaches, that they're excited to come see these kids, because this is not the flavor of the day of what they've had the opportunity since the beginning of March until now in July. This is something that's unique, that's different from all over the place, all over the West Coast, that are going to be playing here, and we'll get to follow those guys, and we'll be able to say, hey, I got to see that kid win. And that's really a neat thing. And then, get to see when they come back and help out in some unique way is pretty great also. So do we have everybody? Well, there's no one that's going to say they have everybody, but we've got enough good players here that we're bringing in all these college coaches to come watch these kids. And part of this event for the 56 teams is you have to have an identifiable Division I player. Now, we also have a silver bracket. And the interesting thing about that is maybe they don't have that marquee Division I player on their team, but they're all really good programs. They're all really good teams. And in fact, we'll chat again in March, because a lot of them will be in state tournaments. And just because they don't have that marquee Division I kid does not mean they're a great team. In fact, they might play better than some of the other 48 teams that are in this thing. A little history on it, and I'm sure you're versed on this, like most people are that are involved with high school basketball. There's a lot of corruption in recruiting. There's a lot of scandal. There's a lot of people that are misguided and have the wrong lens that they're looking at recruiting for. Sometimes it's what's in it for me, and the only person that should be about is what's best for the student athlete. And so, over the past several years, we've seen money really become a major part of the recruiting, and money distributed in the wrong ways, and people being misguided in terms of how they're handling the kids, whether it's the non-scholastic coach, whether it's a scholastic coach, whether it's a college coach, whether it's these shoe companies, whatever it is. You could read the report from Condoleezza Rice's commission. Something had to change, and so through the Rice Commission and the NCAA and their collaboration with the National Federation of High Schools, they decided they'd open up, which hadn't been the case, 2 weekends in the month of June that were going to be open recruiting periods for the Division I coach, in addition to the other college coaches, to come out and watch and assess and evaluate student athletes. So through the NFHS, the NCAA, the National High School Basketball Coaches Association, we worked with them. We came up with a partnership that, since we are the high school coaches and we're the main voice and the main association for high school coaches, we can take this on. We can do this. We know how to put these events on. And so through the National High School Basketball Coaches Association, WIBCA, we got together as a board and said, we can do this. And Tim Gaby, who's my colleague, and we talked, and we can put something like this on. We can do this the right way for our state of Washington. Well, from that, we grew. We said we can do it for neighboring states. We have the bandwidth, we have the hard work. I'm not sure I'd say we have the intelligence, but we have maybe the wisdom to do something like this. And so neighboring states said, hey, we'd love to send our kids up there. And in the past, we've done an individual showcase event. And so we have strict criteria, though, we have to follow. I don't want to knock AAU. I was a part of it. I know people that coach it. I say there's just as many good AAU coaches as there's crummy high school coaches. But I've also seen where families and student athletes and the college coach gets fleeced at these events, where they're paying exorbitant amounts for parking. They're paying exorbitant amounts for admission. The coaches are paying a crazy amount just for the packet of information. We can't do any of that. This is not to make money. This is an event that's nonprofit. We have to not say break even, but whatever funds we make, we have to roll them over either into an educational fund or use this as carryover for next year. And so we have to follow the strict criteria of doing this, and it's a lot of work. It's a lot of time. It's a lot of dotting our I's, crossing our T's to make sure we're doing this the right way. But that's who we are as high school coaches. That's how you run a high school program. If you don't, you're not going to last very long. And we're so accountable to so many different levels. Myself and Tim and the event we do are accountable to the WIA. And the WIA is accountable to the National Federation. The National Federation working with the NCAA, they're accountable. So there's all these chains, and we're part of that food chain to do these events the right way. And but as a high school coach, I'm accountable to our building athletic director, principal, school board, superintendent, everybody. And so it's really no different. And for the most part, high school coaches, we do it the right way, and we're going to do our event the right way. And there's no shortcuts. I've been looking at my monitor regularly because there's 760 waivers sitting in there, and we got to make sure every kid has a waiver. Just something little like that to do this the right way and make sure it's first class for the experience for the kids and their parents, and that we get the main thing, the college coaches coming back and wanting to watch this because they can say it was done the right way, and they got to see what they want to see, which is good high school basketball players that are potential college basketball players at whatever level that can be.
Most of the time, we only look at who is at the top rather than those that helped them climb the mountain. Those that were still behind after the final buzzer sounded of the final game cleaning up. WIBCA is part of that picture in the basketball world of Washington State and for Pacific Northwest Hoopers. In the past, present, and for future generations.